regularly scheduled meeting of the Florence Town of Florence.
Pull your microphone down.
Thank you. Regular scheduled meeting of the Florence Planning and Zoning Commission, September 5th at 6 p.m. Mr. Olguin, would you take roll, please?
Absolutely. Chairman Woolley. Vice Chair Patrick.
Present.
Commissioner Petty.
Present.
Commissioner Anderson.
Present.
Commissioner Reed.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have to bring a light. Okay, moving on to item number 4. This is a public hearing. It's case number PGC Text Amendment. The presentation, discussion, and recommendation of the amendment to the application, or the, I'm going to let you read it.
Sure. Good evening, Vice Chair, members of the Commission, and I will note that Chairman Woolley did contact me before, and he had an important event to attend tonight, so he apologized for his absence. But 4A, presentation, discussion, recommendation of a text amendment application by the Town of Florence amending the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances, more specifically an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 152 Medical Marijuana, Section 15202 Definitions, and Section 15204 Distance Separation Requirements. And this should seem extremely familiar to you because we were just up here presenting this item to you, and then we realized as we had more discussion and more research on this item that we probably were a little too narrow in our definition, in our changes that we provided. So what we've done is kind of gone in here and maintained the intent of the ordinance that was presented to the Commission and that you unanimously supported, but just tweak the language a little bit. We still have the update to some of the definitions, the addition of the correctional facility and halfway house as sensitive uses, the modification of the distance separation as noted in item 2 from 600 feet to 500 feet, mirroring more what the state standards are, and then also adding the distance separation requirement along the noted major corridors, and as you noted in your recommendation last time, we added Felix Road to one of those corridors. But it's item 4 really that has been changed. Instead of specifying really any parcel or specific location, it has been more generalized so that potentially a medical marijuana dispensary could possibly be approved through a conditional use permit process in a building that is predominantly used for medical, health, or related uses. Ideally, that would be a hospital or a major professional office building. But as you can see, there's not a specific site mentioned. So there's sites that would qualify under this today, and who knows, over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or however long this ordinance becomes active, there probably would be additional sites. Keep in mind, ultimately, that under the Medical Marijuana Act, though, that there is only one potential facility allowed in this district unless they change the rules, which would probably have to go through a state vote. And again, a medical marijuana dispensary can only go in a B2 or a light industrial zoning district, and it can only go in if a conditional use permit is approved. So the Planning Commission and ultimately the Mayor and Town Council remain continue to have a lot of discretion on where those facilities are located. So this is a public hearing. I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Anybody have questions?
Excuse me.
I've got a question about the...
Excuse me, Commissioners. Did you want to open the public hearing first and then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm opening a public hearing. And in the absence of the public, I'm closing the public hearing. So, go ahead, John.
Okay. I have a question about item number 4, the changes to allow this within a hospital or other professional offices. You know, I look at that as being an exception to the current land use, and I would feel better if we required anyone who comes in to have to come to us for a design review. And if I read this right, it says that if a hospital wants to put in a marijuana dispensary, they can.
Member Anderson, let me clarify if I could. These are simply the rules. So the whole section here on the medical marijuana chapter is not here. These are the rules regarding the basic locational criteria. So you know, number 1, it has to be a conditional use permit. So there's no way that you could ever get a hospital or any other business could operate a medical marijuana dispensary without getting a conditional use permit. So they have to go through that rigorous process. There's no way that it's ever automatic. There's no way that it's principally permitted. There's no way that a hospital is going to have a dispensary without going through a use permit process. So we have a lot of discretion still in that category. The other thing to note too is it still has to go in a straight B2 or light industrial zone property, and it cannot go in a PAD zone property. So for instance, we do have another hospital up north. That hospital is actually zoned PAD. That would not be an eligible site. But there is another hospital downtown which is a B2 zone site. Potentially could be a site that could be considered. There may be another hospital at some point that may be B2 or another medical office building. Okay. So definitely is not automatic. You still, but what occurs though is if a medical marijuana dispensary could locate a medical facility where folks felt comfortable that it's fully contained within this facility and that's not the predominant use of that building, that they're in there and it's not sticking up. Basically, I think what we've heard through the hearing process is that there was a lot of concern about the prominence of the facility, how it might be marketed, what the image would be, the compatibility, and what we got from that is that if it's contained within an actual professional medical setting, it helped to make that use a lot more compatible.
Do they still have to meet the 500-foot rule? And
they still would have to meet the 500-foot rule from a public or a private school per the state statute.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So it'd basically be 500 feet restriction from schools, churches, libraries, parks, residential areas?
In the case of locating in a hospital or medical office building that met this criteria, it would be the 500 foot from a school, private or public school, under the definition of the state. So it does give leeway in those other scenarios, because also what we found is that the ordinance is quite limiting, and so we made it a little bit more limiting by having the setback from the certain arterials, but then counteracted that with this provision that if you find a site really where it goes into a medically contained building, a hospital, medical office building, that there's some leeway provided. But at the end of the day, I hate to be overly redundant, but it still has to go through a use permit, and a use permit, it will gauge the compatibility and the appropriateness of that specific location when it goes through that process.
Well, what's it mean when it says that there is no minimum separation requirement between the medical marijuana dispensary and a single-family residential zoning?
It means in this case that all those other requirements that we have in our ordinance, those are all self-imposed. So throughout the state of Arizona, after the Medical Marijuana Act passed, different municipalities had different reactions to that law. Some municipalities didn't impose any restrictions as far as locational criteria. Some had very rigorous restrictions. Some basically made it so that a dispensary probably would never be located in their community. We kind of went the middle path, and we said, well, they'd be allowed under certain conditions, but we're going to add additional requirements on top of what the state has. The only state requirement that's out there is the 500 foot from schools. We wrote in all the other requirements, but we're saying again, if you go into a hospital, if we feel like, it's the appropriate setting in that hospital or that medical office building, and it's going to be completely compatible and appropriate at that location, there's an opportunity to be, for that use potentially to be approved through a use permit process. So there's a little bit of give and take in the ordinance.
Am I reading this wrong? Can they put a medical marijuana dispensary next to a residential zone?
Yes, it could conceivably be sitting in on a property that would be adjacent to a residential zone. And the way that the code was written at the last time it was presented to you, it specifically called out a parcel that met that exact standard. So specifically, when the code came to you 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was, we had specified a parcel, and a parcel that was surrounded by a residential zone, and didn't meet all of the criteria that we had in our medical marijuana code. So that remains the same. So the intent is exactly the same, but what we've done is just get away from specifically calling out a site. Keep in mind again too, the use permit process. So there may be some areas where you have a professional office building or a hospital in a B2 or a light industrial zone where they can go in there and nobody's going to know they're in there. It's compatible, the operation works, it has no impact. There may be another scenario when you get the application or the council gets the application and you have 100 people show up at that meeting saying, there's just no way this thing's ever going to work. Don't like the location, don't like how their plan works, don't feel it would be compatible. So you have that opportunity every time that case comes in front of you.
Okay.
It may work here, it may not work there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we forward to the mayor and town council a favorable recommendation for the proposed text amendment PGC-27-13-ORD.
I second that motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Petty and all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, would you forward a recommendation on this to the town council?
Yes.
Item 5A, case number PZC 33-13-DR, Florence Superstop Design Review.
Sure.
Turn it over to you.
Yes, Vice Chair, members of the Commission, Case 5A. So this is a design review application for some additional signage that is being proposed for the new Florence Superstop, which you know is at the corner of Diversion Dam Road and Pinal Parkway, and under construction to come along quite nicely. But one thing that they did notice as construction was underway is that they forgot to include a couple of additional signs in their package. One is, they didn't even think about it. It was an honest mistake that the canopy came pre-manufactured from the Shell Gasoline Corporation, and it included the Shell gasoline signs on each end of the canopy, which you can see there. And then the other item was the car wash sign that's in front of the car wash building. So just a couple of additions to the overall package. All of the signs, including these signs, still meet all town codes, and we believe that they're still appropriate for the site and the architecture of the building, and very compatible with the surrounding development. And you have a recommendation in favor of these signs in front of you. I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
No? No.
Take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the design review application PGC 33-13-DR, subject to the conditions specified.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Anderson with a second from Commissioner Reed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the recommendation, would you please pass, or would you? Yes, we approve the signs.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Item number 6, call to the public for commissioner's response. And so I'm going to open the call to the public. There is no public. I'm going to close the call to the public and make a call to the commissioners. Mr. Anderson?
I have nothing.
Nothing?
I just had something piqued my interest. It was when you had a sensitive area at halfway houses, that denotes to me, like a prison halfway house or a psych halfway house or a substance abuse halfway house. Are there many in town? No, okay. All right, okay.
And without further ado, the meeting is adjourned at 6:16.